Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the tech support event in which the Corben Half-Elf is added to the game. So this is a pretty interesting week. Got quite a few things going on. Most notably is tomorrow night we will well, it depends on time zone, but tomorrow at some point we should be getting the new patch for version 6.3. This is exceedingly likely and is going to be reworking quite a few things with the underworld factions and similar related things, so we'll have to see exactly what that ends up doing. For example, this Friday we should be having a new event that brings in the first ever 5th troop for a faction, specifically for All-Seeing Eye, which is also the first faction ever added to the game, so that will also be the first one to get a 5th troop, as well as everything else that the patch brings. This also means you might want to hold off on doing your Tuesday factions until after the patch, which is normally around like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, pretty much when we stream. However, the patch normally hits around then, though it can vary slightly based on platform. But you might want to do your battles after that because you might be able to get more loot tomorrow for All-Seeing Eye, or sorry, for City of Thieves, which is a really good faction to farm as well. That or you can spend a day farming it because it is a really good farming one. But anyways, we'll get to that in a moment. First, let's start with Leonis Empire. Of course, that is the event week for the week. Really good time to stock up on yellow blues if you need them. Arcanes are only 200 glory each. As far as your troop itself, it is not bad, but is outclassed by other things that exist. It is very similar to that of Egg Thief, but worse in basically every parameter. It explodes 3 gems and is boosted by his gold at a 10-to-1, and then he also gains a very high amount of gold. Biggest issue with this guy is even if you have him explode the entire board, the way that explode works is you only get 50% of the mana accumulation, whereas of course if you end up destroying it, you get 100% of the mana accumulation. So this makes Thrall, Egg Thief, which is most similar to, and stuff like that, way better than using this option. It does still have stealthy like Egg Thief, but it doesn't have the summon, so that's going to be a really big thing that it's missing out on, because that summon basically allows Egg Thief to almost infinitely survive, which is pretty convenient. But overall, if you want something like this, you're probably just going to still be using a Leprechaun at the start of battle. It still gives you gold. It has the instant explode. By the time it gets rolling, there's just other things that would have been better by then, like pretty much anything that has a destroy gem option in the current state of the game. So he's not bad technically, but just other things already do what he does better. So despite him being decent, everything else is just going to be used instead. So there's pretty much no use case other than maybe Arena, where you would end up bringing this out. And in Arena, he could be kind of good. But there's just better things to be already using in your team, so worth skipping in that regard. But still worth upgrading. Leonis Empire is now 26 stars. It is now joined as like the 4th or 5th 26-star kingdom, as is technically possible to do if you have all the requirements leading up to it. As far as the event key drop table is concerned, of course, it is Leonis Empire, which means all the things you see here are available in the event key drop table with 6 exceptions. So those 6 exceptions are, of course, the 4 faction troops from City of Thieves, the Leonis Tower, which can only be crafted from the Soul Forge, and the Emperor, which can only be obtained through Vault Keys. Those 6 things are only obtained through the 4th through the faction, the 1 through Soul Forge, and the other through Vault Keys. Everything else is indeed in the event key drop table. As far as the event key drop table is concerned, you probably want to skip. There are a few things maybe worth considering. For example, if you have 0 copies of Divine Ishbala, it's really good with its 40% Divine Start. It's actually so good, it is the only 50% mana start troop that had to get nerfed to not 50%. Its double convert is really, really good, has a double enchant, so it gets a lot of mana on top of that, which basically makes up for its lack of 50%, and is among one of the better skull spammers in the entire game, just due to the kind of divine synergies that I can end up getting. But that's pretty much the only really good thing from this kingdom. The only other things maybe worth mentioning are Emperor Corvash, if you don't have Obsidius yet, is kind of a okay alternative stunner. He used to be better back in the day, but he's still good in like some true damage teams, but very rarely used these days. And one other weird one is, I wouldn't advise like getting all of it necessarily, because you can get it from bounty events as well, but Tagraki Warrior. Tagraki Warrior is arguably the best bounty troop in the entire game, and you can get copies for him by throwing event keys. This probably isn't a realistic thing to try to do it all the way to max unless you had a lot of keys laying around, but at that point you probably already have a maxed. But it is worth considering if you're like close to getting a max and you don't want to use a blue orb, or you want to get him to legendary and then use a blue orb on him, or something similar because you don't currently have a max. It is potentially worth considering. Bounty hunters occur once every 6 weeks, and pretty much every bounty hunter team in existence uses one Tagraki, and he's normally the strongest thing on any bounty team when you're building like a pure bounty team or a triple bounty team with like one other troop. He's normally the main thing that kind of holds down the line and is generally your main damage source for the bounty hunter event. And of course, the bounty bonus is based on how upgraded it is. So if you only had something like Epic, you would only be getting a 4 times. Whereas if you got it to all the way to Mythic, it'd be a 6 times multiplier, which isn't too big a deal, but you know, it helps with bounty events. So overall, pretty skippable week on event keys. But if you want to pick up Divine Ishbala, maybe Emperor Corvash, and maybe some upgrading on Tagraki, those are like the main reasons you would. The only other reason you might is just to try to get stars up. It is 26 starable, so you could get to 10 star, you could get to 20 star based on the mythics. None of the mythics here are particularly useful. Oddly enough, I would almost say Voice of Orpheus, even though I pretty much never use it, is probably the most viable thing here from a mythic standpoint, mostly because it has the most amount of cleanse in the game. It has a impervious. It has cleanse on trait, and it has cleanse on ability, giving it the highest possibility of cleansing of pretty much anything in the game. The biggest issue with this is very rarely are you going to need that much cleanse while also having impervious. Super situational, you'll be up against a team where you need that many protective ways to make sure you get off cleanse. Normally something just like a Beatrix is perfectly fine and is more optimal in most situations. However, there are some very rare situations where they have like stun spam, maybe something else, and you need like that impervious to stop it, and then you get like the cleanse off. It's very rare. But it is like ever so ultra situationally usable, but otherwise pretty much never worth getting. Anyways, other than for upgrading Leonis Empire. As far as other things that we have going on this week, we do have both Guild Wars and a world event. As far as Guild Wars is concerned, is of course unchanged. Just make sure to set all your defend teams, get all your bonuses, and win those Guild Wars. But aside from the, as far as the actual event, it's just rarity order. We do have spell increase, which is nice. Unfortunately, once again, no skull increase. I feel like we've gone like months now with no skull increase. They just keep doing spell. However, as far as the pathing is concerned, just rarity order. You also have access to Rogue, which means Rogue Spider, specifically Night Spider. But yeah, you can do Night Spider shenanigans. Should be pretty fun. Should be pretty easy. All you really have to do is just AoE spam, have Rogue Spider, or Night Spider, I mean, generate you a bunch of mana accumulation, and then kind of just win. It is a pure purple restriction, so you can't use something like Mother of Darkness, unfortunately. However, there's still plenty of options that you can end up getting away with. Most notably, like literally anything that has AoE damage to all enemies, and you just kind of spam them until you win, since it's only spell and you can't go down the skull route, because there would have been a few kind of fun skull routes, but unfortunately, once again, we do not have extra damage for it. But yeah, it's just rarity order, very straightforward. Take Mythic's highest priority, Legend's second highest priority, Epic's lowest priority. There's no kind of weird shenanigans as far as the points, just rarity is perfectly fine. Anyways, so as far as other things that we have going on this week, which are a few, so as far as tomorrow's concerned, we do have City of Thieves faction. Just want to reiterate again, we are almost guaranteed getting a patch tomorrow for version 6.3, and there's an exceedingly good chance that factions will be better after the patch than prior to the patch. So it is worth considering maybe doing City of Thieves, if you're just doing the basic battles, to do it after the patch ends up hitting, if you're going to be on around what time that normally updates. That's only like going to give you like 5-ish hours or so by the time it gets updated to actually do the event, but maybe worth considering. Otherwise, if you think it might be lagging a bunch or might not be able to get into the patch, you could do it beforehand. City of Thieves is pretty much the best faction in the entire game to farm. Not only is every single room just one step away from the starting tile, but also has really good multipliers and has a bunch of guaranteed treasure rooms. So it gives you a very, very insane amount of loot that you'll be able to farm. So if you wanted to go for 500, even just for the loot, it might almost be worth it. But do be mindful that the loot that you get for the chest at the end, as well as some other mechanics, will likely be changed after the patch. Most likely for the better, though who knows. But I would assume for the better. So it is worth potentially considering doing them after the fact, after the update hits. Anyways, this Wednesday, we can't see it because we have a pet right here. However, we are getting a new pet for Leonis Empire. I believe it's a team bonus pet for Leonis Empire, which should be the second one, which is kind of weird. However, yeah, another team bonus for the thing. This would double stack the bonus. Unfortunately, there's like no context you would ever be running a lot of Leonis Empire because the hero class is pretty underwhelming. Most troops from it are pretty underwhelming, and if you're using one, you're pretty much like only using one because you're using it for its utility purpose, like Divine Ishbala for its mana start and skull spam, or like something like Corvash for its stun and, you know, things like that. So very rarely are using multiple from that kingdom. So that troop is pretty much going to be useless. Thursday, we have the class event for Warpriest, which is another pretty underwhelming hero class. And Friday, we should be having an all-seen eye faction event. However, the twist is it might be changed because of whatever happened in a 6.3 patch that's happening on Tuesday. But aside from that, it will also be, or should be, the very first kingdom to end up getting, or sorry, the very first faction to be getting a new troop. So it'll be getting the 5th troop. I'm not sure exactly how that'll be available. Assumably, you'll be able to get it for Chaos Shards. but you'll also be able to get it with gems if you want to do it with gems, I would assume. So if you like do it through the event, so you can get a bunch of copies of it and then get it through gems that way, or you can just keep throwing chaos shards until you just randomly RNG into it. I'm pretty sure those will be the two methods that you'll be able to accumulate it, and yeah, it will be the first one of many. Every single faction will eventually get a 5th, and who knows, maybe even a 6 at some point. If I'm not mistaken, it's rare rarity. It's like rare, ultra rare, which is unfortunate because the lower rarities are actually harder to max, not easier. So we'll see how exactly that pans out, because that might cost a lot of resources, regardless if it's gems or chaos shards. But we'll have to see how it goes. Anyways. And that's pretty much everything that we have going on throughout the week. So as far as troops are concerned, we have, I actually didn't check this earlier, let me double check. So Scorpius is the first thing that comes to mind. I used the billing Queen Aurora last week, though Queen Aurora is a bit underwhelming. It has like a weird, like sometimes not wanting to work glitch with its mana accumulation, where it doesn't like to trigger multiple at once ever since they made like the non-triggering trait thing. Because they did a patch like a couple years ago where traits don't multi-trigger. But this kind of hurts Queen Aurora because if you there's some weird situations where you can take multiple colors simultaneously, and it doesn't always give you all the mana for all the colors, because it's technically a +1 to all banner, but it doesn't always work properly. But she is good as like a general mana accumulator, but there's just so many things that do mana accumulation these days that very rarely she actually used for that. If you were to go for any one thing, I'd probably say Scorpius. Scorpius is still meta. I personally don't run it anymore. However, Nexus still does not have immune to poison, last I recall. So you can actually still run like an Reality to poison them into Scorpius build, where you just double cast Scorpius. He insta-kills anything that is poison on it. You just run something that quickly runs poison, like a Reality with extra turn, or literally anything that could poison all enemies. Then you cast Scorpius twice, and then you win, which is a bunch of mana accumulating options. And you could run that in Explore 12 Nexus. So he is still viable. So if you want to go run that, if you're getting tired of running whatever current team you're running in Explore 12, you could try that route. Overall, it's probably not worth going out of your way, but he's useful for that, if nothing else. As far as weapons are concerned, the weapons are pretty underwhelming for this kingdom. There's pretty much almost no reason why you would get most of them unless you're just trying to upgrade the kingdom. Do keep in mind, if you want to get 26-star Leonis Empire, this does require literally every single weapon from Leonis Empire, except for the $5 weapon. There are currently 13 total weapons in Leonis Empire, and you would need every single one except for Merchant's Blade in order to max it out. So do be mindful of that. Actually, what's the easiest way to show it? If we go click on weapon Leonis Empire, we can actually end up seeing that there is exactly 13. Where on earth is L? There it is. But as you can see, there is 13 here, so you can end up going for every single one except for Merchant's Blade. So you can still do it 100% free to play, but it does require having literally everything. So if you are really late in the game and you're missing a couple of those weapons, now would be the time to get them if you want to go get that star. Otherwise, you could just ignore it and worry about it later, because pretty much every single one of these weapons are as useless as they look. This is basically just weaker rope dart, and everything else here is pretty much just useless in one way or another. So not really missing out on too much from a usability standpoint, but it is a upgrade kingdoms kind of factor if you want to go and do that. Anyway, so lastly now, let's go over a bunch of... Oh wait, actually one other thing. So as far as campaign, it is now technically possible, if you have the bigger pass, to get the Sparkinator. We will be going over this tonight as well on our normal stream, as we do every single night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, we'll be doing the patch tomorrow night around that time. But yeah, this thing is technically accessible today if you see it around. Unfortunately, it's pretty useless. It just has the one random explosion into those bomb gems. If this was a targetable explosion, he'd be a little bit better. Biggest issue is that this isn't targetable, and the other issue is he has a lot of armor, but nothing to do with all this armor. So unfortunately, not gonna really be that useful. Obviously, there's other mana accumulators out there, but still messing around with him, and he is still technically usable, meaning you could actually use him for Guild Wars if you already had access to it. Probably not worthwhile because he's so underwhelming, but is a factor, so you might see him around, so do be careful. Though he might actually be a benefit, because you can actually just use like an armor tier weapon on him, and boom, just gain a bunch of value off of whatever you're using. So very rarely you're ever gonna see him, but might see him around. Aside from that, let's go over all of the teams for the week. So let's start from the top. World event. You might have already seen this one in the other one. Obviously, build around Night Spider is going to be one of your best bets. You're restricted to Rogue, and you're allowed to use Night Spider for it. So you can basically just build whatever team want around that. This particular one ends up using the blue that Night Spider creates, because it creates blue and purple. The blue goes to Aberral Crystal, the purple goes to everything, and then you just kill off Atlanta. That's the main premise we have here. The lower rarity team ends up using only one Atlanta. It does use Shadow Hunter here, however, you can use pretty much any blue troop you want. I just happen to use Shadow Hunter because this is the best thing to pretty much slot here for the most part, or you could use that one that kind of like spams every single time there's like 13 plus purple on the board or whatever you want to run. However, you want to have something here that uses blue, but basically Atlanta you get for free, Black Mana you get for free from leveling up your hero. Night Spider you have to find, there's only an ultra rare, so hopefully have it laying around, and yeah, and then you slot any blue there just so you could use the blue mana accumulation off of that, and that's basically their team. Same premise as before, you're mostly just spamming Black Mana on Atlanta instead of double Atlanta, though you can also go double Atlanta if you still want to, and then just go like hero weapon or something similar, but then you won't use blue. But yeah, it's the main reason why we use Apple Crystal here. Apple Crystal is an old event weapon, so it is a little bit harder to get, which is why I put it in the other team. However, if you have it, it's a pretty good option, because it's basically the best blue option you have, as most of the blues aren't really too good, since we can't use like Mother of Darkness or anything like that to feed the blue into. So Apple Crystal is a pretty good idea, but any blue that you can kind of do to just slot it in there is going to be fine. Anyways, as far as the faction event for Tuesday, actually most of the teams that we have can be used for both days for the most part, other than the Thrall and the other one, but most of the teams that you can end up using for City of Thieves can be used for the other one because they're really blue focused, so you can still end up running Truffle, you can still end up running Rowan, stuff like that. So the same things that you could run for Tuesday event for City of Thieves are almost the same, not quite though, that you can run for the weekend event when we have All Seeing Eye. But anyways, as far as this first team here, it's just a pretty standard Urskea Shield Rowan team that you can run all the way from 20 to 500. This works both for Tuesday and for the Friday event, as both of them fall under the blue-purple for tomorrow, as well as the green-blue for this weekend. And of course, weapon color doesn't matter. As far as this one, this is just a kind of standard Iron Gut Zugoff. For both instances, you can end up using Iron Gut Zugoff. The only difference is you'd probably have to replace out Thrall for Friday, but you could just replace out Thrall on Friday for hero on first slot and have it tank for you or something similar, and you're pretty much good to go. Or you could put some other mana accumulator there based on the restriction of green-blue, like a Marilith or something similar. And aside from that, as far as pure faction for tomorrow for City of Thieves, you can end up running double King of Thieves and then just put a bunch of support behind it. You want to go into the final battle with one King of Thieves and one Street Thief. If you have that, you're pretty much going to win. King of Thieves is your main win condition. Again, it deals some damage to an enemy and gains some to all skills boosted by gold, so you can end up getting a little bit of stats. But his main premise is just going to hold down the line, keep poking down the enemy. You keep getting mana accumulation off the Steel of Gold, and you also have Skull Spam if you want to risk it. Though once it actually ends up doing up to 14, it's pretty consistent and able to get its 14 Skull Spam. You could even double up on it if you really wanted to. The biggest concern is making sure you have at least one King of Thieves to kind of end up tanking there. But overall, you can kind of run it however you want, depending on, with these three troops, depending on how you want to ratio each one of your options. Though I normally go double King of Thieves just to make sure one of them ends up surviving to the final fight. I don't end up having it shown here, but for pure faction on Friday, you can end up just running literally the final battle of All Seeing Eye. All Seeing Eye is quite a funny faction, in that the best thing to run against a faction is quite literally the team itself. However, we'll probably go over it separately on Friday, mostly because we're getting a new troop, and that new troop might actually be able to be incorporated in it, so I don't personally have it set up here, but I'll probably cover a video for it this Friday, since it is technically the first full event of the new 6.3 patch related to reworking factions, so we'll go over it then. But if we don't have one up yet, it's basically just whatever the final battle is in All Seeing Eye is what you would run for pure faction there. Anyways, as far as Warpriest class, you can end up running this with a couple different ways depending on how you want to mana link it. This one particular one goes all in on red. Falconer ends up creating red. We go to double banner. You end up getting green into that. Feed red back into Dawnbringer. Spam Dawnbringer and just win. Pretty standard kind of get the free gems class event. And aside from that, for any of you that didn't see, I finally got the Horde Mimic. It's finally over. And I'm not going to be covering a video on the Horde Mimic because it's such a useless troop. However, I figured, why not at least show a team for it? Obviously, 0.1% of people on PC version or PC mobile, well, I think it's just PC version, ends up having it. It's obviously a very unobtained troop, but for any of you curious at any point of what a Horde Mimic team is, it's pretty useless, but this is kind of what you would build it around, just kind of using Egg Thief as your mana accumulator, holding down the line for when Horde Mimic inevitably dies. It's pretty much just a standard gold farming team that just has a Horde Mimic randomly plopped in. Plunder and Peril, basically the best way to do gold farming or gold-oriented teams, mostly because of the Scouting Key nerf from a couple years back, and Cedric here in pretty much every gold team in order to secure the extra 100% extra gold. But yeah, Horde Mimic, pretty useless unfortunately. Its skull reduction got nerfed into the ground. Its final trait is literally just one of those 10 traits that hero has that it basically gets for free. Like Thief class can run as one of its 10 and then still have 9 left over, and its ability is just way too random to really end up doing much. So unfortunately, he is very useless, though also very, very rare. and also has an achievement attached to him. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. As I mentioned, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be doing all of the tasks for week 9 of the event, as well as going over the new Mythic that is accessible now, the new Bomb Mythic. And tomorrow we should be able to go over the brand new patch that should be hitting. And then on Friday we'll have the first full day, or full weekend I should say, event related to that, since there might be some tweaks. Obviously we're getting a new troop with it, and we'll see exactly what ends up changing in version 6.3. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you guys soon. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.